What's up, everyone? This is Braven Greenelsh, your host for today's show with a very special guest, Doreen Lorenzo. Doreen is the current Assistant Dean at the New School of Design and Creative Technologies at the University of Texas at Austin. She was honored as the top 15 innovators reshaping Texas, and I'll add, the world. She's had a profound impact on the design community, as well as myself. She's the former president of Frog Design, a little-known agency that she helped to grow to one of the top global branding and design firms in the entire world. Doreen, we are glad to have you today. Let's jump into it, y'all. Welcome, Doreen. We're so glad to have you on the show.
Raven, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you. And I'm so honored to be the first inaugural video. I don't want to let you down. I promise everybody I won't make funny faces.
Yeah, you won't let us down. No, of course. I've known you for a long time, and I'm always impressed by your insights, your experience in the field of design, as well as leadership. So let's jump into it. Tell me what leadership style that you used with one of your first successes, a design agency we all know called Frog Design. Tell us a little bit about what leadership style you used to grow that from a design shop to a global consultancy that's probably top 10 most innovative design firms.
Well, I think the leadership style goes hand in hand with my personality, right? And part of that is if you're going to bring in incredible, wonderful, talented, top-notch people, you have to let them do their job. So your job as a leader is to make sure that everybody knows what the North Star is. And the North Star is not just your point of view, but it's a point of view that you came together as a team. And we know what it is. And your job is to provide the environment for everybody to go reach that North Star. It's kind of clear the decks, right? It's letting people do their job, because we all, as humans, want to feel validated. We all want our opinion heard. We all want to know that we're doing great work. Everybody wants to come to work and do good. Very rarely somebody wants to come to work to destroy things, right? You want to come to work to do good. So let's do that. So let's make sure that you can create as a leader that environment, that creative environment where people can be successful, where you celebrate work you're doing, you get sad when things don't work. All of that is important, but you work together as a team and you all know the direction that you're moving in.
Talk to me a little bit about that. How do you cast vision to create that momentum that's needed to build a global consultancy?
Well, casting vision is kind of looking at the opportunities, right? You have to stay in tune with the opportunities, and you have to know in every business that you're in, chances are when you move forward, you're going to cannibalize what you're leaving behind. And you have to not be afraid of that. And you have to, part of the globalization of a company like Frog was finding the talent, right? The talent just didn't live in one city. The talent was all over the world. Mm-hmm. And so part of our strategy was not necessarily to go after clients in those cities, but to go after talent in those cities and find where they were. And that at the time was a very, very successful strategy, because we went to cities where, people would necessarily not have tapped into, and they were there. And so it's harder. We got a strategy together on how you would go and expand in an area. And once we knew that, it's getting the right people through the door, and that's how you grow. But everybody went, particularly when you're transcending multiple time zones, South Africa through Shanghai, everybody has to understand that what is the mission and values, what's the North Star, what does excellence mean? And everybody's marching in that direction.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about how your success at Frog Design prepared you for your current role as the Assistant Dean at Texas University School of Design and Creative Technology.
Well, I've hired a lot of people in my life, thousands, and I've interviewed multiple thousands of people. And particularly when you look at young people coming out of school, they're smart and they're bright. Often they don't have that real world experience, and they're going to get it. But wouldn't it be interesting if universities would teach students the experience that they need to go out into the marketplace at that moment? So you're actually more valuable to employers, because employers today are moving. I mean, you know it yourself, you're moving at a rapid pace. It's very
Oh yeah.
rare that you can sit down and have that training and get so, if we could teach those students real world experience at that moment, what's needed in the marketplace, in addition to, good design skills and foundations, but also how to think creatively, how to
Mhm.
work in teams, how to pivot. Those are the skills of the future. And if we could do that, I thought we'd have kind of a winning situation. I'd hire so many people, and I felt that was missing. And when the University of Texas came to talk to me about this, I kind of laid it out, and not ever thinking I would be in the academic world. They said, well, let's do it. And then I remember thinking, okay, now what does that mean? But that was 5.5 years ago. We are the fastest growing school in our College of Fine Arts. We have over 650
Yes.
students. We had a 74% increase last year in applications. And it's a really amazing school. It is a amazing program within a public university, which oftentimes to get those types of programs, you're going to a private school.
Yeah.
But what that brings us here is I also wanted to bring diversity to the industry. The industry was not a diverse industry. And I thought if I could go to a place like the University of Texas, I could get those students through, and it could be that diversity that's so needed. And that's exactly what's happening. The students that are coming through come from various walks of life, and they bring that sensibility into the design process,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
it's what we need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so great. That's encouraging to hear. So obviously, I mean, congrats, by the way, 74% increase. Is that what you said in
Yeah,
enrollment?
and
That's
and well,
crazy.
71% increase I wish it was an enrollment. We don't have the space. So if
Yeah.
anybody out there who wants to donate a building, we are taking it.
Yeah.
We don't have the space. I mean, we had an increase in applications, so we're able to grow the program, but not even at
Of
that
course.
rate. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, obviously, everything is changing in the corporate world as well as the design world, and of course, education, right? A
Mhm.
place where campus was so important, especially for undergraduates for 4 years of their lives. What have you learned as an educator and as a designer and business leader during this time of global change?
Change is constant. It's the same thing I've learned my whole life, right? It's the same thing I tried to teach our designers. It's the same thing I would have taught the students before that. Change is a constant, right? And it comes in different forms. We've had a massive change this past year and a half, but guess what? Change is always happening. So my philosophy has always been you can stay behind the change and chase it and follow the trends and complain or just live it, or you can stay in front of it and shape it, because change is happening. It's happening while you and I are talking right now. And so it was a lot of changes last year. Students went online, they weren't in classes, they weren't together, but we had to figure out different ways to make students work together in projects, to teach. And guess what? It happened.
Mm,
It happened. We didn't lose students in the program. The
mm,
work was phenomenal. So when we looked at our senior projects, the capstones, all the projects we looked at the end of the year, they were really good.
that's
I
great.
mean,
And,
it's not the experience that students thought they were going to have, but that's also a
mhm,
little bit of life, right? I mean, Braven, you can talk
absolutely.
about probably 50 things in your world that didn't turn out the way you thought it was going to turn out.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that change is constant. I love the way you open that up. And, I think one thing that's changing is our culture. The millennials, the largest generation in history, to follow the boomers, and we're the Gen X caught in the middle, the forgotten generation. And the millennials are driving a lot of that change, I think, for better or for worse, and mostly for better, right? Tell me a little bit about how that's impacted the change that I think millennials have kind of spearheaded in ways that my generation did not. How is that impacting the well-being of students and the university at large?
Well, I think millennials are one area. I also think that, the 18-year-olds, whatever they are called,
Yeah, Gen Z.
are
Yeah.
causing Gen Z. They There's no excuses. So I think with millennials, everybody said, well, they're entitled. And I don't think that. I mean, I have two millennial children, and guess what? They are incredibly hardworking, but they're also fair and honest, and
Yeah.
they don't understand prejudice. They don't understand how we could treat people the way we've been treating people. So I have hope. I have hope in them. I have hope in Gen Z because they will not stand for this crazy BS. And so I often apologize for my generation screwing things up so badly for them because I really do think that's the case. And I'm hoping, looking at these students that we have, looking at the millennial generation, a lot of them are teaching, and they are so hardworking that they don't accept the status quo as it, and they're not entitled. They're working hard, and they don't like the fact that, just because we did it that way, that's the way it is.
Yeah,
And I think that's a good thing. That's what we need.
I agree. And I think, I read somewhere the book called Elevated Economics, I believe. It's a recent book. I can't remember the name of the author, but it's really amazing how it talks about the millennials have kind of taken this 5 P, right? We learn in school: product placement, promotion, pricing, right? The 4 Ps of marketing and business, and everything is surrounded around those 4 Ps. But now the 5th P, the millennials have put that above all the other 4 Ps, and that's purpose. And I think that we can learn from that. And that they've embraced, I think, change in a way that is healthy. And how do you see that impacting design?
It's wonderful for design because there's all sorts of new solutions that have to come up, right? Again, we don't have to do things the way we always did them. We don't have to fly all over the world to go meet people. We don't have to interact the way we've always done. We can do things differently. And I think getting back to what you're saying about purpose, that goes back to the sense of caring. And they don't care about the money. They are not motivated. I mean, there was, in that period of the dot-com boom many moons ago, 20 years ago, you could throw all sorts of money at people and they jumped all over it. They don't want that. They want time to go do their good. And I think we need that in the world, right? I think we need to be driven by a purpose. And I think it makes companies stop and do the right thing. We went into this world, and it was terrible for the design business. It was quarter to quarter profits. Quarter to quarter profits are terrible for the innovation in the design business because and I know you can't do anything in a quarter, right? No. So what happened is everything shut down, and you just got operational excellence, but you got no innovation, which drove businesses like HP out of business and others. I mean, there's a whole bunch of businesses that went out because of that. But stopping that behavior and saying, we're going to focus on purpose, we're going to give people freedom and time to go pursue that, and we're going to behave and give and trust that all of these people that have gotten, very smart and are hardworking, give them the time to go work the way they want to work. And I think that's also really important. And we're seeing that right now. So we're in this another change where, I know I have like I said, I have 2 millennials. One of mine said, I'm not going back to an office. Quit her job and started her own thing and is working super happy. It's like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't have to.
Yeah, the great resignation, they're calling it. You're absolutely right. And I think one thing this change has also given us is, like, I know you just mentioned it, but I want to key in on that. Tell me about that. I feel like as Americans, we have more time. We've always had the time, but we just haven't taken it, right? And I used to always have friends from Europe and they're like, oh, I'm on holiday, and you get 1 month paid vacation, right? And as an American, you're just like, wow, that's crazy. How would it be to live that way? But now this pandemic has forced us into a time of slowing down. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, what are we doing with the time? What should we be doing with the time, especially in the context of, like you said, purpose and caring?
Thinking. I think thinking is a really good thing. I think the fact that we are pausing to think about how we want to even live our lives as opposed to running on the merry-go-round. I was on the merry-go-round, right? 300,000 miles a year, traveling around. And I have to say this last year and a half, it's been pretty good, right? You look at, volunteer activities you can do, or just getting some sleep is a good thing too, or just caring about other things. I mean, I think that's why we saw so much about the movement of Black Lives Matter, right? And it was everybody joining in because we had time to pay attention. This stuff had been going on for 50 years, hundreds of years. And all of a sudden now everybody was home and we had time to be outraged, which we should have been, and pay attention to it. That's the good that comes out of something like that. That's the good where you say it's okay. Um,
Mm.
People would make fun of the Europeans for all their time off, or the French only working, whatever, 36 hours. You know what? There's something good to that. There's something good to being home with your family. There's something good to being able to take a vacation and regenerate yourself. Americans were so gun ho about, I never take a vacation. I never
Oh,
sleep. That's
yeah,
not
yeah.
healthy. Then
We
you're not
prided
being
ourselves on it.
right. You're not being creative. You're running on the knowledge of the moment, or the knowledge that you have. You're not really generating new creative ideas. And, I think to be a great country, to be living in a great place, is to really spend time living through this kind of innovation. Like, what can we do? Because we know that when you're creating something new, you're going to make mistakes. You got to iterate. You got to try. And you want to give people that opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. I was just reading a book by Daniel Pink called Win, and it's crazy. This guy just he audits medical journals. He gets paid to do that. He's a sales guy. I don't know why he audits medical journals. It's like a primary mode of career, but really smart guy. And he talks about how they studied, I forgot who put the study out, those people that take breaks with work or education, even if it's just like 15, 20 minutes, the people that take breaks outside versus inside of a building, right? Like they go outside just to get the sunlight, nature, whatever it is, they're more productive. They have higher rates of productivity when they come back to work versus people that walk inside. And so this idea of rest and taking breaks is super important to like you said, to innovation and creativity. Absolutely. Not just design and everything. So it's really, really cool. Let's move on. I would like to talk a little bit about, although, millennials are great, and we said they're hard workers and they're not silver spoon fed and all those things, they're also susceptible to burnout, just like all of us, right? And in 2025, 75% of the workforce will be driven by millennials. And so how are we protecting millennials? How are you protecting your students from burnout, which is a result of just work and not creating boundaries within work?
Well, I think part of it in our program, like we have, you've heard design your life, or like design your freshman experience, design what you want your college experience to be. And part of that we're trying to build in is take time to join organizations, to make friends. If you're going to come to the university and you're going to have an in-person experience like most of them want, learn that that's as important as doing all the work, right? You don't have to major in 3 subjects all the time. You get these kids, they're super, they've been on this merry-go-round for the last 12 years of taking multiple choice questions and scoring high on tests, and then they get in, and that's kind of not what life's about, right? Life's about making decisions around critical thinking. So teaching them a lot of the critical thinking skills, it's problem solving. And I say, everybody says, what do you want your students to learn when they get out? To pivot.
Yeah, that's good.
Just to pivot, to know that things are never going to exactly be what you thought they were going to be, but not to be afraid to say, okay, all right, what are we going to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is a skill that I think if you learn young, you just feel comfortable, and it doesn't scare you when you get out there. You're not sweating. I had a young student I spoke to the other day. I have open hours, and I send emails out, and I have students book time with me. I try to talk to everybody in the program over the course of the year, because you learn so much, right? It's insights. I'm not, I'm in the design business. I want to learn about people. And there's one young freshman, and she was literally totally freaked out because she had never been in a situation where she didn't have a defined schedule and she didn't get A's and B's. And guess what? There isn't really a right answer. In design, there's not a right answer, right? Creativity doesn't have a right answer. And this was really, she was having a hard time wrapping her head around that. And I've seen this before, like it's palpitations, it's like, maybe I should go into finance.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's really cool. Talk to me about that. Like during this last 18 months, you said one thing that in our briefing that stuck with me is that you've been spending time with students and just meeting with everybody. How's that been going, and how's that impacted them and you?
Impacted me tremendously. In fact, I don't ever want to stop that. It wouldn't have been something that I would have done if I was in person because I walk the halls and I would see the students. But actually having them stop, even if it's 30 minutes, and telling me about themselves, telling me about some of their concerns, telling me about what they want to do, telling me about the classes they're taking, has been really impactful. What it does is it makes the world smaller. It makes a program smaller. They also know that there's people looking out for them. They know on our side, right, that we are out there every day making sure that their experience is a good one. There's a whole bunch of people, things don't happen just because you're there. There's a whole bunch of people that look out for them. And I think that's been really, really, really important for the students. I mean, I hear it now a lot. It's like, thank you. Like, I can't believe you're doing this. And I have to say, I can't believe I'm not doing it. I can't believe I didn't do it. And I can't
Yeah.
believe that everybody else isn't doing this, because
Crazy. Yeah.
how would we know about things if we didn't talk to, like, that's a design principle, right? Go out and talk to people. How would we know? So we're doing all this stuff. So we're definitely, we work with a lot of industry people. So we're out there finding out, 5 years, 10 years, where are you going from an industry perspective, which helps us inform curriculum. But we also have to understand the students and their needs and wants.
Yeah, I love that. I got a call one time from my dean last year, and I don't know why, but maybe he was doing the same thing you were, because there was this unique opportunity to connect one-on-one with students. I had never heard from my university since I graduated years, like decades ago. And this is the first call I ever got. And I'm telling you, as an alumnus, like former student from so long ago, it still meant so much to me that he called and he's like, hey, I know you're doing 3 good. This is your next startup. How are you? And I was just like, whoa. And I'm not even a student there anymore. It's just, so I keep doing that because I think it probably, just like it impacts you, it's probably going so far with every single student you're meeting with. And so I just applaud your efforts there, because that's a part of mitigating against burnout, right? As you're checking in with them to see if they're okay.
Well, that was that's how I started it, because I would hear that these students were getting burnt out. I mean, listen, they were home, they were in their pajamas in their childhood bedroom, and they felt alone. And that's how it started. I didn't want them to feel alone. I wanted them to know, hey, we're all in this. But it turned into a lot more, because it turned into, how do we help each other? And listen, we all get caught up in what we're doing, and sometimes we forget the purpose.
Absolutely.
I'm there for the students. I'm not there for me. I'm there for these students. I'm there to make sure that these students have an incredible learning opportunity and have the skills they need to be successful in the world, right? I'm giving them as a foundation. That's my purpose. And so if I don't, not talking to the students, you kind of lose sight of that, right? You're like, you don't know that. So for me, that was a revelation. The pandemic was a really good thing for that. I'm grateful.
Yeah, as much as it's been very hard, there has been some things that we've learned and be able to come out better on the other side and get that perspective we need. I wish we had more time to chat. We're gonna close off with the last question, which for me is very insightful. You brought this up in one of our previous discussions. Talk to me a little bit about how we work together, and specifically, the design principle of empathy, but then versus relational principle of grace or kindness.
Well, I love the fact that everybody talks about empathy now, because I could tell you when I first started this, I was booed and hissed, and people would tell me, you're just talking about empathy because you're a woman. I mean, I've had that said to me a million times, or you're emotional, which of course, empathy has nothing to do with that, right? Empathy is about understanding somebody at a deep personal level.
Yeah.
And that helps inform, what motivates them, why are they doing things? And that helps inform how you shape solutions or decisions that you're making. That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that is not kindness or graciousness. And I think we've lost some of that. And I think just being gracious to people and understanding, like, through this whole, when you see how cruel people are, so I might understand what's motivating people, but I don't have to be cruel about it. I think if we just took a step back and said, how do I want to be treated every day? I'm going to just model that behavior.
Yeah, the golden rule.
And that's to me is the graciousness. It's just being respectful. It's just having some, so that's not empathy. Empathy is a super important skill, particularly in design
Mm-hmm.
and leadership. But with that comes some kindness. So I can be empathetic, but I could be really horrible. And I don't think that helps. I don't think that helps get things across. I think listening, being present is important in those skills in doing that. So I practice more graciousness now. I mean, empathy comes really second nature to me. I am that. I didn't know that's who I was, but I am that person. So empathy is really easy. I can read people really well, but the graciousness is what to me is much more important.
Yeah, it's how you respond once you know how they feel. It's how you respond, right? Working with them.
Yeah, and knowing when people are in distress or not, or there is something nagging or bothering them, you can see it. And how do you respond to that? How do you help them? We're so self-centered. That's not helpful.
Especially as leaders, it's easy for us to be like, okay, well, we got to get it done. I'm at the helm. I got to steer the ship.
I don't think you can. So here's my point of view. I don't think you can run your life from the bottom of a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can run your business from the bottom of a spreadsheet, because you have humans, and humans are not interchangeable, and they're not easily replaceable. And we should stop treating people that way. Yeah. And understand the value that everybody brings. And one person may not be perfect for a job or situation, but they still bring a value, and we have to treat people that way.
Yeah. And I think being vulnerable is so important too. It's showing people, hey, I'm going to act with grace. I mean, the definition I know of grace is, maybe I'm off here, is you give someone what they don't deserve. And so sometimes, you're having to compromise as a leader, that bottom line, like you said, to make sure that the people, the humans that you work for are okay, and they're healthy, and they're protected. And then sometimes I think it's important to shield yourself from the lies that we can't be vulnerable as leaders, right? Because that's sometimes what helps our employees or our people open up to us, and to realize, oh wow, she or he, my supervisor, they're human. They also are struggling. They're not impervious to everything around us.
And that's okay. That's good for them to see. That's good for everybody to see, that sometimes things are just tough, right? Yeah. And you get through it. I mean, that's the other part, is that you can get through things that are tough. Yeah. That's why this, listen, nobody liked these last 18 months. Nobody liked it. But at the end of the day, we're pretty resilient people. People are resilient. And as long as you keep your health, you can conquer a lot, right? When you're, dealt a bad hand in your health, that to me is the toughest situation. But if you have ways of getting out and being creative about ways of, helping yourself, like, go at it. Like, I think that's what we forget.
Absolutely. Well, Doreen, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show.
You too, Braven. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Last one, just give us a book recommendation, something that we should read to help us in this time.
So I'm pulling it up because I just started it, and it's not. So here's what you should know about me. I do not read business books at all. I don't read business books. Love it. Okay. It's not that I don't like it. I read a lot of articles and stuff, but I don't read books. So I'm reading Unrequited Infatuations. I just started it this morning, which is the Stevie Van Zandt book. And he has been the sidekick to Bruce Springsteen for many years. Yes. So I just, I love those kind of stories, just about how, people come from nowhere, and how they kind of climb by just sheer willpower to get where they are. So anyway, I love those stories. For me, actually, anything related to Bruce Springsteen is always okay.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, thank you, Doreen, for the recommendation. We'll put it in the
Thank
episode
you.
notes. Follow us
at
Twitter, everyone. And Doreen, you have a blessed rest of the week.
You too. Enjoy. All right. Bye, everybody. Bye.